You are listening to Leave Your Mark with your host, Vince Cortese. Leave your mark. Inspiring the world, one guest at a time.
I'm Vince Cortese, and today's guest is Mark Francis. He is a professor, sports business consultant, and speaker with experience in the sports and entertainment industry, including his teaching at the University of Oregon and consulting through Mark One Sports Entertainment. Mark, thank you for being my guest here today.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, what I want to talk about today is we're going to tap into your insights to explore trends, challenges, and innovations. From the branding strategy to business development, I want to uncover shifts shaping sports and entertainment today. Before we get started, I want to give the audience a little bit about you. You're originally from New Brunswick, Canada. You are a graduate of the University of New Brunswick with an MBA in sports management, a hockey player. How many years did you play hockey in Canada?
Played right up until college and then started coaching, played through high school. I started coaching at a pretty young age at my hometown high school, Fredericton High School, in 1994. Went from there, coached. I was assistant coach with the University of New Brunswick men's team there. Highly successful program. They've won 10 national titles now, 9 since '07. And I had a great opportunity to coach with the guy's a legend in Canadian hockey circles, Gardner McDougall. Gardner had won 9 titles since 2007 and is now head coach with the Moncton Wildcats and won a title there his first year.
Just the winning titles. Share with me some of the degrees that you have.
Yeah, it's more about me not being able to figure out what I wanted to do in life. But I've got undergraduate degrees in physical education and education from the University of New Brunswick. I did a graduate diploma in sports administration from Concordia University in Montreal back in the early 90s. And then I decided in 2007 to blow up my life and take a gamble and went back to grad school and did my MBA. And 2 master's degrees at the University of New Brunswick through a connection, a former coach, Mike Johnson, who's now the president of the Portland Winterhawks in the Canadian Hockey League, ended up doing my capstone thesis work with the Los Angeles Kings in 2008. Came back out full-time in 2010.
But you coached to the UCLA club team for how long?
Yeah, that was fun. The UCLA actually has a hockey team. It's a club program that has literally been around for almost 100 years. I believe 2028 is their 100th anniversary.
Wow, they're coming up on it.
Yeah, it was an ACH, American Collegiate Hockey Association, ACHA. They were a Division II program. So I did that for 7 years and had a lot of fun with it. It wasn't what we had at the University of New Brunswick, but it was still a lot of fun. I just had dinner with my former captain in LA about a month ago, Mark Yost, who's now a trauma surgeon at UCLA Reagan. And he was giving me the rundown of all of the different things these guys have gone on to do. It's pretty impressive.
It's great to cross paths. The UCLA, it's an incredible place out there.
I just finished my program there. Has always been a part-time thing in the summer. And I just did my 15th year, which is something I never could have imagined.
Now, in the middle of that, you started your Mark One Sports and Entertainment. We'll touch on that at the very end. I want to talk to you about today, the end. With the revenue sharing and the athlete compensation.
Yeah.
How is this changing the dynamics of college sports?
There's so many tentacles to this. For athletes to be able to, NIL originally, right? Like I think it's been around since 2001. They talked about it originally like it was a new idea. It's really not. All it was intended to be was that college athletes could do their own endorsement deals just like the pro athletes have been doing forever. That's essentially what it was. It was never intended for universities to be paying athletes or boosters to pay athletes, but with some of the administrative challenges that the NCAA's had and enforcement challenges, it's essentially what it turned into. In a lot of schools, you hear different stories about boosters had a way through the collectives to start pay for play. And that was never what NIL was supposed to be. It was supposed to be an educational initiative where athletes would learn building their own personal brands, how to run a business, surround themselves with accountants and finance experts and those kinds of things so they didn't get into trouble with their taxes. And with the advent of social media being what it is now, that was the vehicle that brands would use to measure how much presence, engagement these athletes, they would make their decisions on whether or not to endorse a particular athlete based on their level of engagement and following on social media. You take the LSU gymnast Libby Dunn as an example. It's been reported that she's made $6 to $7 million a year. Arch Manning is making a small fortune, but I would point out that
And the money's coming directly from the university.
no, with NIL, it was supposed to be brands paying athletes to do endorsement deals. And then the university started forming these things called collectives. Like, the way to think about collectives is to think about politics and super PACs. And that's essentially how collectives were supposed to work. There was not supposed to be any connection in terms of communication and collaboration, recruiting of athletes and enticing them financially. And with the new NIL rules in 2021, one of the rules was no enticement. The universities could not go out and get the athletes deals. It was supposed to be completely separate, but it's evolved since then. So this wasn't the original events, to be clear. NIL wasn't the universities paying the athletes. That didn't happen until today.
Fascinating fact. Most people don't know the NCAA started in 1906 because President Theodore Roosevelt pushed colleges to change football rules after a series of serious on-field injuries and even deaths. Without that moment, college sports might look completely different today.
So to bring up to speed, we've gone through the collectives, which the universities largely still have. We've seen the conference realignment. The point I'm trying to make was that when the House case is the big litigation, the case that was just settled, it was a combination of a few different class action lawsuits, athletes wanting an actual piece of the revenue that the NCAA has been making and these schools have been making. As an example, the NCAA men's basketball tournament, I've seen reports estimating over $1 billion a year in revenue. The athletes wanted a piece of that. This was the conversation around the House case. Now we want a piece of the pie. Now the university should be paying us for our participation and our performance. We should get into the revenue sharing side of things. And that's where we are today.
Does that then, because I'm thinking you have majors and then mid-majors. So like some of these ones at the D1 level, there'll be a big disparity, say like from a Kentucky basketball to like even at D1, like a Wake Forest place like that. So are they going to salary cap this, or like how do you keep it so then that they still don't keep trying to buy the athlete?
They are going to still keep trying to buy the athlete. So with the recent House case ruling, what it essentially boiled down to was that the schools are now in the four power conferences, the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 10, were now allowed to facilitate direct payments to athletes to the tune of about $20 million per school.
There's not a salary cap of sorts.
This is the dangerous part, I think, that they're playing in, is that really you can, a salary cap, and I've heard this term tossed around quite a bit from some very knowledgeable people in college athletics saying we need salary cap. But what they don't understand is that at the pro level, the reason they have salary caps, the NHL and the NFL specifically have hard salary cap systems. Those things are collectively bargained. And in order for them to be collectively bargained, there has to be a union. And so they can't get a salary cap in the traditional way in college sports unless they were to unionize. The unionization of college athletics is pretty much impossible with over 500,000 athletes. So that option is not really on the table. I remember Chip Kelly had put a proposal out. It wasn't a formal thing, but I remember he said publicly a couple of years ago before he left UCLA that football should go independent. And still under the agreement where the football programs fund a lot of the athletic programs, that wouldn't change. But if the football programs went independent, you'd have, if you're counting all of the top football programs in the four power conferences, you're around 60 programs. Then perhaps you could unionize within college football.
Would that bring in the end of amateurism? But then a high school kid might need an agent or a manager to understand what arena they're stepping into.
Unintended consequences, but it's completely foreseeable. Kirby Smart came out 2 months ago, the head coach at Georgia, saying that schools that were paying high school recruits who had committed to them up to $20,000 a month just to honor their commitment. So it's really,
how does a 17, 18-year-old kid manage that?
Yeah. It's a rhetorical question, but the answer is obvious. They don't.
Did you know? Oregon Duck's mascot secret. The Oregon Duck is actually based on Disney's Donald Duck thanks to a special licensing agreement the school made with Disney decades ago. The character is so closely protected that the university keeps the identity of the student inside the costume anonymous, even when the duck got suspended after a famous on-field fight with another mascot.
Then let me ask you this, because I want to cover a couple of these other topics. Where do you see this going? It's like the Pandora's box. It's been open, and it's like this seems like it's just going to continue to add.
Yeah.
I don't feel they could take it away now. I don't see it playing out.
One of the things I want everybody to understand that hears this is that there's this concept called antitrust law in legal terms. And I'm not an attorney. I teach sports law, but I know enough about it to be dangerous. So the issue that the NCAA had forever was that they were putting arbitrary rules and controls in place to limit athletes' ability to make income. Like Division I athletes weren't even allowed to go get a job. Not only could they not be paid, they weren't even allowed to go get a job. And their remuneration packages were limited to their tuition, books, room and board, meal stipends, things like that, or meal plans, I should say. Maureen Bialik, and I'm probably butchering that name, but she was a PhD math student at UCLA. She was doing that show. And nobody's telling her that she can't make money as a college student at UCLA. If you ever go in the Hall of Fame room at UCLA, you'd see a lot of the actors and actresses over the years that have gone there. Nobody's telling them they can't go get a job. The average student, if their face or picture ended up on the cover of EA Sports College Basketball, like Ed O'Bannon's did, they had the lawyer by the afternoon and be paid 10% of all the royalties by the end of the day. But the athletes weren't allowed just because the NCAA put those rules in. So a lot of what the NCAA did over the years, a walking, talking violation of antitrust law. And in the end, that's what I remember Judge Kavanaugh a few years ago, when this thing really exploded on NIL and all of that, that the business model was significantly flawed and a lot of antitrust violation in there. I've even heard Nick Saban say, we need a salary cap in college sports. He's not wrong. But the reason there's a salary cap in the NFL, again, is through collective bargaining. And for that, you have to have a union. What just happened with the House case is the athletes agreed to a de facto salary cap and share of revenue by accepting the settlement. Now the schools can spend up to, it's approximately 20 million. I've seen reports out of Texas Tech that they're paying 28. There's a new enforcement body in place headed up by a former VP of Major League Baseball, and Deloitte, the big consulting firm, is supposed to be overseeing that. It's too early to tell how it's all going to play out in terms of the enforcement, but you're still going to see bidding wars for athletes in college. We're still going to see NIL, and now the House case and stuff have brought it out into the open, but it's still the same problem. We're still going to see schools out trying to outbid each other to get the next big thing at quarterback or running back or receiver or the point guard or the center. You're still going to see it.
That leads me to the non-revenue sports like swimming or gymnastics that doesn't really cover costs. Do these sports get done away with, or there's going to be a budgetary concern to keep everybody happy?
It remains to be seen. If you go back to the original days of Title IX, the unintended consequences of the schools at the time, a lot of them making the decision to cut men's sports as opposed to adding women's sports, which is what the legislation was intended for. It's too early to tell because we haven't seen it play out yet. Let's take this $20 million, right, from school A. What are they going to do with that $20 million? 90% of our money is going to football and men's basketball, and then 10% is going to all of these other sports. That has Title IX implications. And there's already been lawsuits filed for that. How do you get around Title IX with this new legal ruling or legal settlement? It's still a violation of Title IX. Because why wouldn't that money, now that the schools are actually writing the checks falls into why we have Title IX, equal distribution of resources for male and female athletes. That's a big problem. There's already been class actions filed on that issue. The other issue, Vince, is the Olympic sports. There's a danger that schools are going to be cutting some of those sports. We'll have to see it play out over the next 3 years.
College sports with the Olympics has always been the feeder system.
Yeah.
If you don't have swimming, gymnastics, and wrestling, those are all Olympic sports.
Yep.
These people go and get groomed. Are they all clubs or do they disappear?
Yeah, some of them are, especially like if you take schools like Cal Poly San Luis Obispo as an example, they've got their championship swim team was already cut. And I saw that recently, but they were interviewing a couple of kids that had been recruited from San Diego that on full scholarship to go there, and then suddenly the team's gone. I think you're going to see some of that because a lot of these schools outside of the Power Four, especially, like where does the money come from? And how do they compete for all of these prime athletes, right? And you're going to see it within schools. They're going to have to look internally and ask themselves, okay, why are we in this? Why are we in the Division I college sports space? And then from there, they have to ask themselves, what do we need to prioritize? And the answer to that, financially speaking, is football, men's basketball, the two big revenue sports. But to compete at the Division I level for national championships at men's football and basketball is incredibly expensive. Are schools going to invest in both or just one of them? The money is in football. That's where the real money is in college sports. You're going to have to decide internally where you're going to prioritize resources. And it's probably not going to be on the men's and women's rowing team. It's sad. I don't think that if we were to go back 100 years, this is what was intended for college sports. From Canada, as you mentioned, Vince, in Canada, we have U Sports Canada by comparable. That's the NCAA here in the United States. Although the competition and the sports are very good and very well structured, we've never commoditized it in Canada like they do here. It's part of the educational experience. But here in the US, it is on a whole other level. And the resources that are pumped into it, I think probably the number one marketing tool that these universities have are their athletics programs.
Tip of the day: a college education doesn't just give you a degree, it changes your lifetime trajectory. On average, people with a bachelor's degree earn about 65% more over their lifetime than those with only a high school diploma. That extra income gives you more options, more freedom, and more security long after your playing days are over.
I want to talk about the conferences realigning. When you have teams like UCLA and USC and they have these rivalries that are approaching 100 years or beyond, that creates such an alumni draw, but such rich storylines. So you're going to have a diminished fan base. And then these conferences are establishing new rivalries. But when you look at the history and the nostalgia of college athletics, it's going to take a kick because you're going to have a whole new issue of the media getting involved in the right types of deals and this whole revenue sharing. Being from Pittsburgh, we got to play Pitt and West Virginia. It was no fun when teams weren't on your schedule.
Right.
You get a new conference, you start playing 10, 12, 15 years later, you get a little bit of rivalry. But nothing is culture rich. People have these holidays where they celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas and their alumni still arguing about beating the other teams. It's a part of American tradition that the change.
And it's really too bad. Like in a way, if you look at these conference realignments, like I'll use the Big Ten as an example, right? What did they get out of the Pac-12? They got the 4 top programs out of the Pac-12 who all still play each other. Like UCLA, USC rivalry is not going away. Washington, Oregon's not going away. UCLA, Oregon, USC, Oregon, and so on is not going away. But it's not the Pac-12, right? It's Big Ten half the time.
Back in the day, as a Notre Dame fan growing up, and it's like they're independent, and it's almost forces the colleges to be of an independent mindset.
I never had a chance to talk to him about it before he left. When Chip Kelly put that forward or made that public a few years ago, it was a tongue-in-cheek, as I recall, comment, but he's not wrong when you really think about it. If you could have football be independent, all of the teams create their rotating schedules with 60 programs, roughly, it does make a lot of sense, right? Because really his point was, look, because football is going and playing at Maryland or Michigan or whatever, doesn't mean that we should do the same thing with women's softball or crew or tennis or whatever. Like those sports could have been left alone in the Pac-12, in the Big Ten, and so on. If you take a sport like football to go play Midwest in the East, not that big of a deal, really. They play anywhere between 10, 11, 12 games, right? Half of those games are going to be on the road, and the games are weeks apart. But the problem that you get into is you look at baseball, I think they play 75 games. Basketball they're traveling all the time. I think the men's basketball team at UCLA, I heard Mick Cronin say they traveled 26,000 miles last year.
Wow.
And then you throw in this strange concept that these people are students, or student athletes. When do they get to be students? From a person who loves sport, I've been on both sides of the equation in coaching and in my academic roles. And I got to ask you, where's the student in all of this?
The education part's been pushed to the side.
The priority has been on the sports side, not on the academic side. I'd have a hard time somebody arguing otherwise.
Ask a coach. When should you ask for help? You should ask for help with your skills way earlier than you think. Here are 3 powerful reasons why. You fix bad habits before they get locked in. A coach can spot technical flaws in your mechanics that you can't see and help you correct them before they become ingrained and harder to change. Early feedback speeds up your development and keeps you from wasting reps doing the wrong thing. You improve faster with a real plan. Coaches can build a focused training plan so every workout has a purpose instead of you just working hard without clear direction. A clear roadmap helps you track progress, stay motivated, and hit specific performance goals sooner. You learn how to handle pressure and adversity. The right coach teaches you how to respond when you're in a slump, not getting minutes, or dealing with mistakes in big moments. Those mental skills carry over into the classroom and your future career, not just the court or field.
Wrap this up. I got a couple other questions for you because the social media and the sports entertainment.
Yeah.
What does the future hold for sports technology and fan engagement with these like FanDuel and some of these other things getting involved with these?
Are you asking me about sports gambling?
Now, sports technology, more than what the fan engagement's at a peak is they feel like they're getting a piece of the pie too with those apps. But the technology really what's curbing all of this?
I think if you talk about sports gambling, and you notice I don't call it sports betting, I just call it what it is. I'm not a big fan of it, but what you're seeing there, the explosion of it, unlike anything we've ever seen before, is because of the mobile phone, and it's in your hand all the time. These betting companies incentivizing people, like if you start, we'll give you a free $300 or a free $200 to start. That's how addiction starts. With technology, why sports gambling is exploding the way it is, a lot of it is because of the technology with the mobile phones. In terms of fan engagement, since I'll go back to 2013, 2014 with the advent of stadium Wi-Fi and high density Wi-Fi systems and people being able to order their food from their seat, order merch from their seat, check the longest beer lines, the shortest bathroom lines. It reduces friction points for fans. Wayfinding around a stadium, really important. Instead of having a Hall of Fame space standalone in a stadium, you spread out the artifacts throughout the stadium. QR codes, you encourage people to circulate throughout the stadium. I'm thinking kids especially, where they're doing scavenger hunts with their mobile phones through stadiums. That's really good. Where I think that sports has to be really careful is just adopting technology because it's new and cool, without a lot of forethought in terms of how it should be integrated and optimized. I think we've already seen, I was just at a Dodgers game a month ago, and you notice the safety netting on both sides of the field, the left and right field. And baseball resisted that for an awfully long time. I still don't know why. But 100 years ago, a legal precedent was made where fans were responsible for their own safety. And now on the Jumbotron, it's telling us to scan this and tweet that and basically telling us not to pay attention. You're going to have injuries. And Baseball really had no choice. Hockey's done the same thing much earlier. People shouldn't have to be injured life and limb to go to a sporting event. Technology has led to these new safety measures that stadiums have put in.
I want to throw this in there. I don't know how involved you would be in this. Some of the stuff with the medical advance, things like light therapy and infrared, the technology's more advanced. The idea of getting the recovery and getting that athlete back on the field. How much do you think that is like where they're trying to get the competitive edge, and does that continue?
You hear stories about high school athletes electing to have Tommy John surgery because in this day and age of developing baseball pitchers, it's all about max effort every pitch, high velocity, max effort. We're seeing ruptures of ligaments in pitchers at a rate never seen before. It's because of that. The body's just not designed to do what we're demanding of baseball pitchers. Now, what's happening is that the technology is getting so much better. I'll use Shane Bieber as an example. It's a guy that had Tommy John surgery, I believe it was in April of 24. Here we are in August, and he's back, and he's killing it. And matter of fact, he's pitching at home tonight. But that used to be a 2-year waiting period. I think took 2 years. That's more out of an embarrassment of riches on the Dodgers pitching staff, and they could afford to wait. Personally, what I've dealt with my knees and the stem cell treatments and replacements and things like that, I can do whatever I want with 2 full knee replacements. Do whatever I want. I'm pretty selective about it. I won't go skiing even though I could, or I don't run anymore even though I can. I want to protect
the recovery issues. The idea of you just getting older and as quick as you did when you were younger, but the technology speeding that up it's impressive.
The bet, Vince, if it's today and Bo Jackson injures his hip today, with the technology being what it is, he would have been successful in his comeback.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like the amount of technology and studying going on. I think about Shazier here in Pittsburgh, what they know how to manage the spine and how to go to it right away with the ice. And that happened to him maybe 10, 15 years prior. He might not be walking today.
That's right.
I think that you're exactly right on that.
And I think we'll get there with catastrophic injuries like that, like to the head and neck, the spine. I don't know how far off we are, but we're eventually going to solve that.
The head injuries are always very peculiar. But what I'm going to do before I finish up with you is I want you to share with me your Mark 1 Sports and Entertainment. What's going on? Like, how'd you start it? Where is the direction it's going now? And what do you want to do? Where do you want it to end up?
I used to do consulting work, and I still do on the side, different projects with different companies and entities. I never had a formal entity attached to it. In the age of the internet, people will take you more seriously if you have formal setup. So Mark 1 Sports and Entertainment is something I created in Vancouver in 2017. And I don't do a ton with it, but I will do consulting work with universities, private entities, those kinds of things. I've tried to put it under that banner. When I'm approaching people, I do a lot of public speaking. That's one of the services I offer.
When I met you, you were helping getting BAM Entertainment going at the Rose Bowl. That's his 5-star sports event.
Since I was with them 10 years ago, they'd been sold to a company called Freeman, but they still operate. They've gotten involved with so many different great events, the Women's World Cup, FIFA in Canada, the Field of Dreams game, and so on. And Marie Rowe, who runs them, is the best in the business. The work they do in the outdoor games for the NHL and the draft is phenomenal.
Where are the best places they can get a hold of you?
They can find me on my website, mark1se.com. I'm on Facebook. Instagram is mark.francis1. My LinkedIn is markfrancis23. My Twitter is markfrancis23. You can email me, amfrancis23@gmail.com. Hope to hear from some people. It would be fun.
I have to ask you, this is the whole reason we have you on the podcast. How would you like to be remembered? How do you want to leave your mark?
I'll tell you, this summer was a really timely question for you. This summer was a super proud moment for me. It was year 15 of running my program at UCLA, and I had a couple of things happen. So I had Doug DeCinces. People remember him as an all-star with the Orioles and the Angels, right? And I taught his granddaughter, Delaney, at Concordia University in Irvine a couple of years ago. And Delaney got a job with Fox Sports in the production side of things. And I had her in as a guest speaker this summer. She's only 2 years out of college. That was awesome. I've had another kid, Che Woolery. Che comes from an inner city environment in LA, has worked incredibly hard and has now been promoted by the Dodgers 4 times in 5 years. Unbelievable accomplishments that guy's made. Madison Herger's another one, working at USC at the Coliseum. That's the mark I want to leave, is the impact on the industry in the future by having these people with these strong ethical foundations that we try to instill in them. Those are really cool. Yeah, I think if I had to leave a mark, that would be it. I don't know how many students I've taught, but it's a lot. My former captain at UCLA, Mark Yost, is a trauma surgeon, 10 years removed from playing hockey for me at UCLA. But he's saving lives every day, and he wants to go work in the inner city. There's 2 or 3 other doctors that came out of that program, and there's lawyers. And my other former captain, Michael Carter, I was talking to him the other day, just got married, is doing great. And
He was there when I was there. I remember Carter. He was
for Mercer in consulting, living in Marina Del Rey and having a great time. I got it from my former coaching partner, Gardner McDougall. You're going to be a person a lot longer than you're going to be an athlete. So you better take care of your stuff outside of the sports world.
Before you go, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support lets us keep these stories alive and reaching the people who need them most. If today's conversation touched you, stay with us. We have more stories, more truth, more courage, more healing waiting for you. Click on our next episode and continue this journey with us. We appreciate you. Keep watching.